coming to you live on tape from the beautiful studios in Merrifield, Virginia. This is the Fairfax Sports Report. My name is Greg Wyshynski of the Connection Newspapers. Alongside me this evening, BJ Cooper-Lewis of the Connection Newspapers, and of course, the lovely and talented Jeff Graham of the Connection Newspapers. As you see, BJ is dressed in the Black Bart role this evening. He is the villain of the panel in his spiffy black FSR vest. That's pretty spiffy, I'd have to say.
Villain, I've been called that quite a few times.
The villainous BJ Cooper-Lewis. Absolutely. Well, yeah, exactly. Well, boys, I don't think I'm telling any secrets here when I tell you that it was a pretty remarkable weekend in local high school sports last weekend. You had the basketball finals at the Patriot Center. You had the track regional finals at the GMU Fieldhouse. And of course, for the first time in many, many moons, the Virginia AAA State Wrestling Championships were held in the northern region at Robinson Secondary, and a lot of crazy stuff happened in all of those venues, and we're going to talk about all of that this evening and also preview the next level of competition for all of those sports, including some very interesting basketball state quarterfinals coming up this weekend. But before we get to that, I want to thank the folks that make this show possible every single week, talking about the underwriters. Of course, we're talking about CCI screen printing for all of your screen printing needs, 703-978-0257. And Quality Care Ford Service Center, servicing all makes and models, 703-383-6299. And would you look at that?
That's beautiful.
Is that not beautiful?
Look at your name in lights.
That's
man.
right. It's Glow Pucks and 10-cent beer. It's my book, and it's available for pre-order on Amazon.com. So order, if you need to order it, then there is a place to order. So there you go. Very good. It's a cool, there you go. Very good. So anyways, I want to tell you all about the girls' regional basketball playoffs. The semifinals and finals were held at the Patriot Center. And boys, I think it's safe to say that the finals pitted two of the most highly touted players in the northern region in quite some time against each other in that big final.
Yeah, I had the luxury to be there and get to see the game firsthand, and there was a matchup there that everybody came to see. In obviously Edison versus T.C. Williams girls. Darina Campbell being the big star for Edison, a junior, forward, guard, everything, and also Tiara Ruffin-Pratt, only a freshman. We'll later in the show we'll get to see highlights, and you'll just see her body type does not look like a freshman and does not play like a freshman. 35 points in the semifinals just to get to that finals, and both teams obviously going to state, Greg.
There you go, and going to state. And then the game itself, how did you see it breaking down? What were the advantages for Edison in this game, and what did T.C. Williams have to do that they didn't do to win this game?
Well, Edison had the advantage going in. They had already won a 10-point victory, 78-68, actually in Edison's second game of the season. So they had already played the Titans. The Titans, a young team, by the way, as is Edison, but they do have the junior leadership of Darina Campbell. Someone asked me before the telecast, they said, who do you think's going to win? I said, I can't tell you that, but what I can tell you is both teams will be here next year, most likely. They're young, talented, and deep, both teams. As for breaking it down, it was really the Darina Campbell show. Everybody came to see the Tiara Ruffin-Pratt versus Darina Campbell matchup, and I think the age really showed through on the night. Darina Campbell took control of the game. She got her teammates involved. Ruffin-Pratt looked like she might have gotten a little bit frustrated at times. She's only a freshman, so she's got time to work on that. I think that the rebounding situation was what carried Edison to the victory. Low scoring first half. You see those in championship games. And they crashed the boards, and Coach Diane Lewis of Edison said it. She said before the game, whoever crashes the boards is going to win the game. And Edison was getting second and third and sometimes even fourth looks at scoring just because of offensive rebounding.
And when I had the opportunity to watch Edison earlier in the tournament against West Springfield, a couple of things stuck with me. First was their ability to clog the lanes on defense, really kind of disrupt the other team's offense. But the other thing is that if you look at their starting lineup, a lot of the players have sort of the same body type. They're sort of these lithe, athletic players that can go up and grab a rebound, but at the same time can also make something happen offensively. And I was really impressed with the versatility of their lineup. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think Campbell obviously sets the tone for that team. But the supporting cast, they go about 7 deep, right. Maybe 8 on some nights. But they are able to really use those players in a lot of different roles, it seems, on the court. It's not the static 5 positions that you see in some offenses and defenses. These players seem to be able to fill a lot of different roles during the course of the game.
And we'll see the name Adria Crawford for a while now. I mean, we'll see it in the highlights, we'll see it in the paper, and we'll see her name a lot. And she didn't have the biggest night. They keyed on her because the first time they played each other, Edison won the game, as we mentioned, but she led the scoring. Dorena Campbell is obviously known as the main threat on that team, but Adria Crawford had 23 points in the first time they met early in the season, so they keyed on her and it opened it up for everybody else. But just because she didn't score didn't mean she wasn't involved. She was diving after loose balls. She was rebounding, giving her team second and third opportunities to keep scoring. And that was the difference. That was the big key to the game. And TC, too young, I think, to be able to focus and get those second and third opportunities. And Ruffin Pratt tried to take over the game at one point. It was a little bit too late.
There you go. Dialing it back around, obviously a lot of people were talking about some of the upsets in this tournament, some of the surprises in the tournament. I don't necessarily think Marshall making it as far as they did was necessarily a surprise, but talk a little bit about the Statesmen making it to the semifinals.
The Marshall girls, I mean, they have Amanda Brown, who's an incredible guard. She's a senior. She set some records there this year. And they have a Sumaya Al-Shingeti. She's a senior. KT Message, a bunch of players, but they couldn't get past the young team. You know, they're older, Marshall. Marshall is older than is the TC team collectively. And TC turned it on that night. Edison turned it on. Edison turned it on that night, being younger. I confused my two semifinal games there, but Edison turned it on, and Dorena Campbell obviously led the way. She was 9 of 9 from the free throw line down the stretch, 11 of 11 during that game to best Marshall. Marshall just couldn't get past, I guess, the defense, and that's what it was that made them get past that round.
There you go. And Jeff, if you're the Madison Warhawks, can you rest on your laurels after this tournament, having done what they did earlier in the tournament? Not making the finals, obviously, is a bit of a heartbreak, but basically, you could argue that Madison made the most news in this tournament, knocking out Jasmine Thomas.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when you knock out the top seed Oakton in the second round, I mean, that was a major upset, and I'm sure they're disappointed they weren't able to kind of use that to propel them into the finals. I mean, I think going in, we maybe thought that Madison and Oakton could meet in the finals, and I want to say, not taking anything away from TC Williams, I think Madison might have given Edison a better matchup in the finals, just on based upon they have some forwards that can do some damage, and Christy Cushney is one of the best guards in the region. So I think that would have been a nice matchup to see, but we also thought the TC Edison matchup was going to be closer than it was. So I mean, Edison. I mean, they handled Marshall pretty good in the semifinal round as well. So I mean, they're the most deserving team. When you look at what they did on paper.
There you go. And since we are, of course, the preeminent sports experts here on the Fairfax Sports Network,
when we get our matchups right.
When we get our matchups right, we decided to hand out a little fake hardware this evening to some coaches and players of the year in the Northern Region basketball community. For the girls, the FSN Coach of the Year, I think that we were all sort of in agreement on this one. Diane Lewis from Edison. This is a coach who took a team that everyone assumed, and we are as guilty as anyone of that would get through the national district with ease, and then took that team and led it all the way to the promised land through the regional tournament. And it wasn't exactly the easiest road, and I thought that she did a great job coaching a team that wasn't just a one-player team and really developing a system around her talent that was as effective as anything I've seen this season.
And they saw the road before them. A lot of people thought that Edison was a team that could maybe take out Oakton. It was all who was going to take out Oakton in the end. But once they saw that Oakton wasn't there, they saw Marshall and drilled them in the semifinals, and then really had a blowout victory in the finals. So it was a clear road for them, and they took care of business.
There you go. And then the FSN Player of the Year. This one, I think, was a little bit of debate. I cast my vote for the eventual winner, T.R. Ruffin Pratt from T.C. Williams, because I felt as though she elevated her team to a level that I, quite frankly, did not think she'd be able to elevate it to. She was a linchpin for that team. I had a lot of coaches telling me that even as a freshman, she was the best player in the region, and I think that she deserves every accolade that comes her way this season. I thought it was a remarkable performance to lift T.C. Williams to the regional finals.
Yeah, I mean, if you take the playoffs into consideration, you would have to give it to, I would say either her or Campbell. So Thomas just didn't get it done. Her team didn't get it done in the playoffs. So Ruffin Pratt's a very deserving winner.
Did you think that Jasmine deserved a little cast vote there, or Darina Campbell? Anybody like that? Or
Well, I'm going like this to Jeff Graham because he's got a different player than myself. I believed, Tierra Ruffin Pratt, a good player, but I believe that Darina might have been a better choice for the award. I don't know. I think Tierra, like you mentioned, she's the best player possibly in the tournament, but I think Darina had that opportunity to get her teammates involved, and I think that's what Ruffin Pratt couldn't do. And I think it was a difficult road because TC, couldn't get the teammates involved. I think, yes, there's an argument there. Was Tierra better because she did it all, or was Darina better because she got her teammates involved? And I think there's an argument to be made both ways.
Well, there you go. We've mentioned Darina Campbell and Tierra Ruffin Pratt for about the last 15 minutes. Let's take a look at what that looked like at the Patriot Center last weekend. Edison and TC Williams playing in the Northern Region Girls Basketball Final. Here's the old tip-off, BJ.
And right away, you see TC comes out, and this is what Diane Lewis talked about after the game. The defense of Edison. The first two times that TC tried to pass the ball in, they were defended and there was turnovers. So there's Darina Campbell, number 20 there. She hit that floater right down the middle.
And the thing about Campbell that you don't realize until you actually see her physically play is this is a girls basketball player that can make things happen in the air. And I think I can count on one hand the number of players I've been able to see, hang in the air around the foul line and make a shot. I mean, that's remarkable.
Here you see Ruffin Pratt getting the steal and getting her first 2 points. It was a really low-scoring first half. Both teams had the jitters. It even happened in the first part of the third. That's the shot you're talking about right there. Yeah. That's Campbell, baseline.
Baseline. I mean, it's amazing what she's able to do when she has to stop and pop. I mean, I don't know many other basketball players on the girls' side in the region that can do that.
And a lot of girls can't even get their own shot. I mean, that's what makes special players, college level players, are kids that can go off the dribble and get their own shot. She can actually get to that difficult position where she's in the air, maybe not in the best opportunity to shoot and score with somebody in their face.
And you see something we've seen twice now from TC on both highlights. No one else is really getting a good shot off. It's all Ruffin Pratt. You see her there trying to fight for the rebound. And that was one of the only other players right there to score, for TC really on the night. So it was quite a difficult night for the Titans. A young team, they're going to be back. Here we see Ruffin Pratt got a scare. She was thrown to the ground and got up kind of gingerly and tested that right ankle, but ended up being okay. She finished with 17 on the night, just two nights after carrying her team past Madison with 35 points, 22 of those points in the second half, and we saw obviously Campbell there going baseline, but finishing strong all the way underneath.
What I didn't realize about Ruffin Pratt until I watched her in this game, because I hadn't seen her before this game, is the size.
Right.
I didn't realize how big she was. You hear about a freshman, you think a certain body type, but she's definitely bigger than I thought she'd be.
And she's going to keep growing, and I think, I talked with another reporter after the game, as we see the buzzer beater there, not by Campbell. That was the difference. Somebody else hit a shot for Edison, but I think Tierra, as we're going to see her, try to finish this shot here, she's got some growth, in her future. Not only physically, but she's got to grow in some other ways, and I think she's definitely up for the challenge. Coach Portia mentioned it after the game, as we see Adria Crawford getting tossed around there, number 32, by her teammates in a 50-31 win for the Eagles, first time in 28 years going to the state tournament. So they've got to be pretty excited.
Not too shabby. It was a historic win and a well-deserved win. I think clearly when you look back at this season, they were the cream of the crop. There are a lot of teams that were sort of in the mix throughout the season, but I think Edison, looking back, was the most solid team, without a doubt. All right, moving on to the boys' side of the bracket. The Northern Region Boys Basketball Championship game also held at the Patriot Center this weekend, and let's talk about it.
Jeff Graham,
well,
just kicked off with the Madison Marshall. Man. That was an incredible game.
I mean, the Madison Marshall game, it was the fourth meeting between the two during the season. Marshall had won 2 of 3. Madison got the Statesman in the district semifinals to get the number 1 seed. But I mean, for a 4 seed to go into that game and play with the confidence that they did, it was just incredible. And you could see the frustration just throughout the game just kind of growing on Madison. They must have been thinking, here we go again. This is a team that we really can't seem to figure out. It was a low-scoring game. Marshall plays like a slow down style of ball, very patient. And I think during the first half we were wondering if the score was going to break 60 combined points. It actually did, and it came down to the wire. I mean, we looked at the photos, from the game this week, and Jordan Culwith came up big, in the end. He had a free throw to put them up by 1 point, and then came up with a big block to really clinch that victory.
That's a name they know well. FSN Game of the Week. We even did the recap on this show, and we said, did he take 3 steps? That was the big thing earlier in the year, and he hit the runner for the second win. Now, they lost to Madison in the district final, okay? So that was the one win that Madison got. But out of 4 games, they got him 3 times, and they got him when it counted.
And I think we've seen it year in and year out in the regional tournament and generally in the regional postseason. You've got teams with talent, which Madison definitely had, and you have teams that play that sort of system like Marshall does, like Brian Metris's teams do. And sometimes when you put those 2 teams in an important game, more often than not, the system wins. You know what I mean?
I mean, especially in a game where your nerves are probably already, going a lot. You're in an atmosphere in the Patriot Center where it's not easy to shoot, so points are already going to be at a premium.
Right.
So if you can play defense and convert, when it counts, when you have few opportunities, that really, I think, played in their favor in this game.
And give them credit. I mean, Marshall is a team that has to stick to a certain game plan. They're playing in that environment. It's remarkable that those kids were able to compose themselves and stick to the game plan, and not played outside of themselves.
In the first quarter, they held the ball for the last 2 or 3 minutes, and you could hear the boos from the crowd because they were saying, I'm sure most of them were coming from the Madison section, but because it's a lot of times it's not entertaining to watch because there's not a lot of action going on, but it gets the W in a lot of cases.
Kevin Weirin, I mean, you have to give him credit. 7th season over there, and still, I guess, working magic with the talent pool over there. Which, let's just face it, it's not where other schools are. They're the small school in the region. We'll talk more about it later, but working wonders just to get them past Madison. Not once, not twice, 3 times. Madison has 3 collegiate players, D1 basketball players. There's something to be said for that. Nobody going to play basketball in college from Marshall.
There you go. So obviously that was a big game, but the game that everyone is talking about still is the regional final, as you see on the screen. Herndon and Marshall played in the final on Saturday night, and Scotty Reynolds delivers on a long-standing promise to Coach Gary Hall.
Yeah, 4 years ago when they lost, Scotty Reynolds, went up to Coach Hall and said, "Coach, I'm going to get you one." And after the game, Coach Hall was fighting back tears. He didn't want to show it, but he was emotional, and he should be. This is the culmination of a relationship with a player that he's known since he was 10 years old, since Scotty moved back here from Chicago. And he's known him for that long, and he's helped develop Scotty. He's gone above and beyond, and Scotty's gone above and beyond for him. And they put it together, and they won that championship on a night where Scotty didn't have the greatest game. He only scored 17 points, but as he mentioned in the post-game interview, easy buckets. And why was it easy buckets? He was getting double-teamed at times, and he was dishing them off. Everybody had a big night. Chase Miller, 8 points. Matt Seeger, season high, 13 points, 3 threes, just torching them from the outside. It was a pretty incredible night for Herndon. First region title win in school history, and they're going to the state tournament where I think they're the favorite.
I'd have to say so. I think they're playing great ball right now. And Jeff, Scotty winning the regional title is a huge story. He's someone everyone expects to have a pretty bright future. But Gary Hall winning the regional title, I think, is equally or even the bigger story. I mean, this is a coach who has been coaching, basically since the dawn of time, it seems, in the northern region. He is mentioned in the same breath with coaches like Wendell Bird, Charlie Thompson, people like that. The difference has always been they won and Coach Hall didn't. And now finally he shakes that albatross that's kind of been around his neck the whole time, and now he has won. And I think it's a great story for a veteran coach like that to finally break through and win, and to do it with a player like Scotty, who's obviously he's got a great relationship with.
Right. You mentioned Coach Bird. Coach Hall was under Coach Bird for a number of years when Grant Hill was there, and Coach Bird, I think I want to say he has 5 region titles. So I mean, for a coach like Coach Hall to be around 17 years and not have won one, and people have said he's had some talented teams that were capable of winning region titles, and for whatever reason, they haven't. They've run into some bad luck, or have been outplayed in one game, and in a region tournament that can happen. If you lose one game, you're out. So for him to win one, I think he can kind of go on and out from this and say, hey, you can mention me and you can look at my teams and say, hey, this is, we accomplished something, and people won't look at him and say, hey, he's never won anything over there, even though he's had some good teams.
He said it after the game. I talked to him. He was happy. You could actually, he was trying to keep himself composed, and he was. He did a great job, but you could just see it. It looked like he just took the deepest breath he's taken in a long time. 17 years at Herndon, won 5 regular season titles and 5 district titles, but never got the region title. And he said it. He said, it validates you a little bit, and it gives you something to look back on and talk to your grandkids about. Being very sentimental. And I think that it does, in a certain way, like you mentioned, it does validate him, and it puts him in that echelon, if you will, with some of the other guys that have won the big one.
And I think he's also happy for the kids to go to Herndon. A couple years ago when they lost to South Lakes in the region finals, they played a great game, and I said to him afterwards, your kids can be proud of this game, and he said, pride and kind of stuff like that. He's like, you can be happy with all that, but that doesn't put a banner up in your gym for your kids to look at and remember 10 years from now. So now they're going to have a banner up there, so every Herndon kid that goes in that gym can say, hey, remember back when we won that title.
Larry Benyon said it. He came off. We should talk about Larry for a minute here, because Larry was suspended for the game versus in the semifinals. He was suspended for the semifinal game, and he couldn't play. And he said, my teammates held it down for me to get us here. They had to beat TC in that semifinal to get there. And that might have been his last game, a suspension. Larry had some trouble getting to school and maybe some car trouble or whatnot. But he got that second game, and they held it down for him, and they got him that second game, and they did win it. He had a big night, a couple of dunks I know he was real happy about. And he said it best. He said, we've got all this district stuff, like you just mentioned, with the banner. We've got all this district stuff, but there's nothing under that regional banner. He goes, 2006, that was us. So it's good to see a team like that come together and get something that, like you said, can remember.
Absolutely. And while our words, I'm sure, paint a lovely picture, the highlights from the game, I believe, will be even better for you to watch at this point in time. We're talking about Herndon and Marshall in the regional final.
Herndon wearing white.
Right.
Marshall not wearing white.
And this is Daniel Dixon here trying to get his teammates open. And they scored first.
There you go.
So we see Dixon again. He was getting hounded. Seeger gets the turnover, dishes to Scotty.
Look
Beautiful.
at that move.
Beautiful.
Look at that move. Unbelievable.
How many body variations went into that one?
Yeah, right.
Going up into the air there. Here's the dish off. Just tough time
and again,
for Marshall.
the kid looks like he's playing at a different speed.
Absolutely. He's got that 6th and 7th gear.
And Scotty, who actually was named a McDonald's All-American, I guess one of 24 kids. He's going to be playing in that game upcoming. So that's a major honor, and not a lot of kids get that.
And can you imagine how many free McGriddles he gets for being on that team? Probably a lot.
First Northern Region public school kid to be named a McDonald's All-American since 1993.
That's right.
There's Larry Benyon getting amped up. He didn't get in until 1.9 seconds left in the first quarter, so the suspension looked like it carried over. Josh Hedden, who had a big night in the semifinal versus TC, got the start, came in, and then Larry kind of, went in there and did what he could throughout the game. Chase Miller having a heck of a game. This kid comes in, finally works his way into the lineup, coming from a different school, dishing off to Danny Jones. They're only a junior. We're going to see good things out of him. Now look at this, guys. Check this out.
Herndon has a 10-point lead in the end of the third quarter, and this is normally what Marshall does to other teams. They hold the ball, they wait for the last shot.
Now, it should be said that we've done some fancy editing here.
Actually, Chase can dribble that fast. So yeah, we wanted to show how long they took. They ran Marshall's offense on Marshall and ran the clock off, 10-point lead. Beautifully done. You draw this up, guys. You draw this up anytime you want. 9 times out of 10, it's not happening. Look at the timing. Look at the clock. All right, right now at about 8 seconds, 7 seconds, Chase Miller's wasting the clock, gives it off to Seeger. Seeger says, oh, look at me, I'm open now.
Yeah.
Ready? As the light goes on, wham, one of his three-pointers. Beautiful night for Matt Seeger.
And tragically, Chase's arms fell off moments after that.
Too much dribbling.
And here's Larry having a big night. Comes over, gets all amped up, goes right up to Gary Hall. We didn't see that, but he gave him a hug. Pretty emotional on the night. There's Jordan Colbreth, lefty, hitting the jump shot. Was out in foul trouble for most of the game. Couldn't have a night like he had against Madison. Watch Chase. Uh-oh, gotcha. These kids dropping dimes all day and then hits you with the floater right in the paint. It's hard to defend that when you never know what he's going to do.
And here we see the culmination of a championship season for the Herndon Hornets. 65-47, your final in the Northern Region Championship game. Bigger spread than you thought, or about what you expected in this game as far as the final score?
I had no idea what to expect. When you have a Marshall team that has done what they've done, you don't know what to expect. They're going to slow the game down, and they're going to do what they have to do to advance, and that's what they've done throughout the whole season. Not necessarily trying to win games, but maybe not just trying to just not lose games. And they went out there and did what they could, but you never know how they slow it down if it's going to be able to take Herndon out of their offense. Gosh, it did it to Madison 3 times. So didn't know what to expect, but not surprised to see the final that we did.
There you go. And as we mentioned before, we have used our expertise this week to craft a list of the award winners on the Fairfax Sports Report. And on the boys' side, the FSN Coach of the Year. A little bit of discussion on this, boys, but I think we all agreed Kevin Weirin of Marshall High School deserves the accolades. He took a 4 seed from the Liberty District and led them all the way to a state tournament berth. And I think there's no arguing, in my mind, about whether he deserves it. I think you can look at this award and say, well, you look at Gary Hall, you look at what he was able to do, he came away, he won the darn thing. Maybe he deserves it. But to me, taking a 4 seed, bringing him through the tournament, Weirin deserves the award.
There's different cases to be made for both coaches. What Gary Hall did throughout the season, preparing his team to get there, putting them through that gauntlet of a schedule, which I've talked about until I was blue in the face all year this year, nationally ranked teams, and we've heard it. But, setting that up made Herndon the team that Herndon was not in the past. Herndon was never battle-tested when they got to that level, and we saw the result of the past. So Gary had the special opportunity to get his kids ready, and he did so, having a McDonald's All-American on the roster and being able to get those big games. On the other hand, there's nobody from Marshall going to play collegiate basketball, but Kevin Weirin has got them going into the state tournament for the first time for the first time ever, because in 1980 when they went to the regional final and TC won that game, only one team advanced.
Right.
So both teams did not go in 1980. Even though they did advance to the regional final, they did not go to the state tournament. So first time ever state tournament appearance for Marshall. So for what he's working with, to be able to do what he's doing with that talent pool, Herndon going as deep as they are, I gotta say that the X factor for Marshall is the coaching. I think, the X factor for Herndon is maybe the players.
Now, Jeff, not to get too analytical here with this topic, but where do you stand? I mean, obviously, if you're a guy coaching a team that doesn't have grade A talent, if you bring them to this level, you're going to get more accolades than the guy who has a Scotty Reynolds, who does have some talent on his team. Isn't that a little unfair to Gary Hall, though, to kind of almost penalize him for having a player like Reynolds?
Yeah, it may be unfair because a lot of times, when you win this award, like you win an MVP award, it's always like who's the best player on the best
player,
team.
the best team, yeah.
And a lot of ways, a lot of times the coach, it's the same way. But I think because this was such a phenomenal story. I mean, this was a 4 seed.
Yeah.
This is a seed that is expected to lose in the first round usually, and to get to the finals, to go into a Patriot Center with a team that in all honesty probably looks like it's more fit for its academic than the Patriot Center. To get them even in a position to knock off a team like Herndon, and for most part they were kind of in the game, to knock off an athletic team like Madison, a team who's in the last 5 years has been the best team in the region. Hayfield, earlier in the tournament. I mean, it's just a tremendous story.
There you go. And go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, you got to mention, how that school has come together. They were wearing shirts that said, small school, big heart, and it's what they've been. It's what their players feed off of. They've had several teams now go to the state tournament just this year. The field hockey team went. They've got the baseball team last year doing what they did, and so many teams doing things that are uncharted waters for that school. And you see them wearing those shirts, and that is because Kevin Weirin bought those shirts from basketball legend Red Jenkins over here, and they sold out in 10 minutes. 10 minutes they sold those on a Friday. He was trying to get people interested in the game to go out to the Patriot Center. And those things sold out $5 a piece in 10 minutes, 300 shirts. And those kids showed up in droves to the Patriot Center to support that team. And it was really more important in that Friday night game that they be there to push them past their rival Madison, because Madison came out really strong as well in their fan support. But when we talk about fan support, nobody touches Herndon.
Yeah, there you go. And you know, we've been kind of wallowing in basketball for the last 2 weeks like pigs in their own filth, and we couldn't help but continue this wallowing with a little thing we like to call the FSN starting five. Now, what we've done, BJ, is we've taken what could be called a dream team of boys and girls basketball players and crafted our own starting five based on what we think would be the best combination of the top players from this season in the Northern region. We started with the boys, and Jeff, do you have yourself the quintessential, the starting five you go to war with?
I do have a starting five, and I'm thinking it's going to be similar to BJ's starting five and perhaps yours, Greg. At my point guard position, Daniel Dixon from Marshall. He was kind of their catalyst all year. The team. I mean, I could see Dixon playing in college, maybe not Division I, but you know, here's a tremendous player. At the shooting guard, Scotty Reynolds, who I believe was our FSN Player of the Year. You know,
it was only about 10 minutes ago.
Three-time Northern Region Player of the Year. You know, what could be said? He's going to Oklahoma. You know, best player in the region.
Did we ever say Scotty was the Player of the Year? I think we might have actually even skipped that. Did we?
We said it now.
There's Scotty.
I think
Congratulations, Scotty Reynolds.
there was no question who the Player of the Year was.
We knew it. We
Oh,
knew
If you
boy.
didn't know who the Player of the Year was, you know, change the channel.
No. Moving onward. Warren Edney, who now, if we look back at the region semifinal, didn't have a great game against Marshall. Wasn't able to get his hands on the ball even a whole lot, but a tremendous defensive player, a guy who can guard, you know, guards and forwards. He's my three. Power forward Maurice Hubbard for Westfield had a great game against Madison in the region tournament. That was a close loss in double overtime. He needs to work on his foul shooting a little bit, but he's a sophomore, so he's got a lot of room to grow. And Julian Vaughn from Southlake's at the center position, but he could also play shooting guard because the guy's a tremendous three-point shooter. So there's my starting five. Some alternates: Marcus Lemon from TC Williams, Ben Stokes from Edison, and John Oglow from Madison.
Here's why you're wrong. We've got a lot of the same names on our rosters, and I'll give you the guards. I went with the same way you went. I got Daniel Dixon as my point guard, moves the ball very well, sets his teammates up. The no-look pass, it's not just fancy for him, it's part of his game, and it works, and it gets players open. Imagine Daniel dishing off a no-look pass to Scotty Reynolds for the open three. I mean, it's vicious. You can't stop it. Warren Edney, small forward. The kid's going to get in there and do what he does. And I'm not only putting him on there. There's a lot of small forwards you can put on there. I'm not only putting him on there for his offense, but for his defense. Offensive and defensive Player of the Year for the Liberty District. That should be noted. That's a difficult thing to accomplish. Now, you got Hubbard from Westfield at your power forward position. I'm putting Hubbard at the center because I think he does his best work inside. Got to work on that free throw shooting ability, and he's got to work on his outside shot. That's why I'm sticking him underneath until he grows up a little bit. But who has grown up is Julian Vaughn, and I'm sticking him in my power forward position because the kid can do it all. He can hit you on the inside as that double threat with Hubbard, and he can shoot threes better than some guards in the region. It's pretty incredible to see this guy with shoulders that go out. Look, they're going outside of the screen here. This is how big his shoulders are, okay? He's an incredibly large man boy, and he can hit the outside shot better than anybody of that size. 6'10", gentlemen, 6'10". He can stroke threes. My sixth man, Tarek Amori, McLean High School. The kid is probably one of the most unknown but biggest prospects that will be coming out of this area, I believe, in the next 2 years. He's only a sophomore, and I think he was this close to an all-region selection.
That's pretty close. My starting five, obviously Scotty Reynolds. It was in the backcourt. I like Chapman Kennedy of the Hayfield Hawks in my backcourt because I do like that sort of Jordan-esque, I'm throwing that word out to put a smile on your face, Mr. Cool Rules, Jordan-esque guards who are able to be a floor general but also hit a big shot. And Kennedy can lead you in scoring one night and also kind of run the offense for you, and I like that. I like John Oglow. I like a guy who can hit a big shot from the outside, play a kind of a versatile sort of game. I like him from the Madison Warhawks. Julian Vaughn, I would have him at the 4, and I would have Brandon Altman
You like yourself
of the Madison Warhawks at the 5 because I think that Altman is one of the few players in the region where every single trip down defensively. He can alter another team's offense. He's a big, tall, shot-blocking center, but he's not, he's not Manute Bol. He can also come in and hit a big hook shot and score some points for you on the inside. I like Altman in there next to Vaughn, because Vaughn then can be freed up to do everything that Vaughn does, and Altman can kind of be in the middle and play sort of that zone, fly, swatting, shot-blocking, Mark Eaton kind of defense.
Who's coaching your team?
I'll coach the team. I've played NBA Live for a number of years, and I'll coach the team.
Do you remember the old Sega?
Which game?
NBA
There's a
Live?
lot of Sega games.
Dude, the Sega game was incredible, man. You had all the little guys that were like this big. The Bulls were awesome.
You're a youngin', and you don't remember the joys of double dribble.
That's right.
As Jeff and I do.
Remember
and-
in double dribble when you fouled someone, they didn't say foul, they said near film.
I also like in double dribble where you can point the ball at the crowd, and it'll still go left
Nice.
into the basket.
I was like Jordan versus Bird.
Oh, there you go.
Great game. Wendell Bird, speaking of birds, Wendell Bird is my coach.
Captain Segway.
That's the coach I'm taking to coach my dream team.
There you go. Do you have a coach?
I'm going to go with Jim Smith for Chantilly. I had to deal with kind of a rough year for him this year, dealt with some suspensions, so I think he deserves a shot to take this team on against Wendell Bird and BJ's team.
And what about me? You forgot me. I'm
Well,
also the coach.
I think you'd rank third behind
Thank
Smith
you.
and Bird.
Do you have a girls' team, Mr. Graham?
I do have a girls' team. At my point guard, Christy Cushney. She played the shooting guard position this year, but she ran the point for the Warhawks last year, going on to play college. Jasmine Thomas at my 2 for Oakton. They're a tremendous player. Darina Campbell at the 3 from Edison. Tiara Ruffin-Pratt, T.C. Williams at the 4. Going to go with a 4-guard lineup. And Catherine Cochran from Woodson, a tremendous player on the inside, but can also shoot outside. In a year where there weren't, I don't think, a lot of great forwards, a lot of good post players, she was one of the best.
Sir?
Yeah, okay, I'll go. Why the heck not? Listen, this is the bottom line with the girls' dream team. And by the way, I'm only going to give 5 because it's the starting 5. These guys have given like 10 each time. I'm going to give 5. There are a cluster of girls basketball players that are clearly better than everyone else. But the problem is they almost all play the same positions. There isn't really a true star post player, I don't think, in the region now after Abby Robertson graduated last year. So I think when you look at my dream team, I'm going to put Jasmine Thomas on it. I'm going to put Darina Campbell on it. I'm going to put Tiara Ruffin-Pratt on it. I'm going to put Sam Jones from the Robinson Rams on it, because I think if you do need to get inside and have sort of a versatile swing woman kind of player, I think Sam's a good choice. And I would put Lauren Reinshuttle on the team, because I think when you have Thomas, Campbell, Pratt, that's a lot of this defensive responsibility, and Reinshuttle could literally set up a lawn chair outside the three-point line and score 90 a night with the open shot she'd get. So that's my team, and I'd coach them again.
And speaking of scoring 90 a night, I'm going to take Jasmine Thomas and I'm going to put her at the shooting guard. And you put Jasmine in an offense where she's got some players that can hit some shots, this team will go undefeated for a lifetime, okay? Amanda Brown, I'm putting her at my point guard. I chose her over Christy Cushney because they beat them this year. They stopped their winning streak, and a big part of that was Amanda Brown. They defeated them. Madison started that winning streak, and then they defeated them later in the season, and they ended that winning
losses.
streak. So, like you say, the bookends there. Amanda Brown, point guard. I believe she has a lot of collegiate ability in her. Darina Campbell's going to my small forward. Tiara Ruffin-Pratt, power forward, big-bodied, can get it done. And then, obviously, no one wants to talk about the centers. As Greg mentioned, there are none. I think if you take a power forward and put her in the center position, Samaya Al-Shingeti is a player from Marshall. No one talked about her a lot. She's got the body type for it, and she can rebound. She does a lot more than just getting in there and trying to score. I think she was one of the more underappreciated players in the region this year, and a big part of why Amanda Brown was always open for the outside shot.
I'd like to change my answer. My center would actually be Tiara Ruffin-Pratt on Darina Campbell's shoulders, and that way she'd be like 11 feet tall and like really strong, but also like really good.
Nice.
And she could hit the floater.
And she get the floater, exactly. And she's only going to get better.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
BJ, who's coaching your team?
Coaching my team is Denise Weinig. You ask,
Big
who is
surprise.
Denise Weinig? Who's Denise Weinig? Denise Weinig, ladies and gentlemen, is actually Denise Wojcik. She got married this year. Not a lot of people know it. She was kind of in the papers. Some were still calling her Wojcik. Some were calling her Weinig. So same coach, just different name.
But same initials.
That's right.
DW.
Indeed.
And Denise, who played under Pat Deegan at Madison, Pat's going to be my coach. Again, I think they rank ahead of Greg.
Great, thank you.
Nice.
You know, I do. Pat Summit. I went to her camp for girls basketball.
How was
and,
sweeping the floors?
I learned a lot. Learned a lot.
Yeah, about pouring those individual little water cups.
Exactly.
That was a pretty good
Greg
one.
was
a
the
whole
water
lot.
boy.
Were you the towel swinger?
I was the
Designated
towel swinger. State basketball this weekend, gentlemen. Some very intriguing matchups. You have the Marshall boys and the TC girls on the road, and of course, to the victor go the spoils, the Herndon boys and the Edison girls here in the northern region. How does this thing shake out?
Well, there's a lot going on. Let's start off with Meadowbrook and Marshall. Marshall 19-9 entering the tournament. They're getting the lower seed to Meadowbrook, the Central Region champion, which it appears Meadowbrook upset their way past LC Bird in the semis and past Highland Springs in the finals. Actually ranked lower than Highland Springs as we see a bracket here. You see Herndon down there with the number 1 seed and Meadowbrook and Marshall up on the top part, and everybody else in the middle there.
Yeah.
Got some beach teams in there and some other regional powerhouse contenders.
GW Danville is a team with some buzz. You do hear that name being mentioned by a few folks.
But it would set up, if Marshall could upset their way through and Herndon does what it's supposed to do, we could see it again, gentlemen.
We
could
certainly
see
could.
the Patriots Center rematch.
I think it would be good if just one of our teams got in, considering we haven't won in a while.
Right.
That is true.
Didn't mean to rain on anybody's parade.
Couple players we should mention for Meadowbrook in that Marshall matchup, which, by the way, Marshall will be on the road traveling to the Central Region. Couple players we should mention from Meadowbrook, which is 24-5 on the season. They got a 6'2" senior guard. 6'2" guard, by the way. Let's mention that. Let's talk about the heights on their team, because that's the smallest player in the lineup. 6'4", 6'3", 6'7", and 6'8". So when your guard is 6'2", I don't think Marshall will be able to contend with the body types they're going to be up against. Every single starter is a senior, by the way, too. That leading scorer is Devin Johnson, 18.1 points a game, and he hit his average in the win over Highland Springs in those semis down in the in the finals in the Central Region. Another player we should mention is Martin Harrison, 10.2 points a game.
Good receiver.
6'2". That would be Marvin.
Not my fault.
Yeah. But yeah, they've got a pretty good starting lineup, all seniors. You don't see that on the Marshall end.
There you go. And over on the girls' side of the bracket, you've got TC, as we mentioned, on the road, and Edison playing here in the Northern Region against Monacan. TC on the road facing Manchester. Monacan, I see 18-6 on the year. They have a coach by the name of Larry Starr and a junior guard by the name of Meredith Starr. Same spelling. How peculiar.
How peculiar.
Indeed.
First season Larry Starr.
Indeed.
Looks like his daughter may be the star of the team.
Hey, exactly. Well, the Chiefs, as
Actually,
they
she's
are,
about 4th in scoring.
the Chiefs, as they are known, ranked 6th in the final Times Dispatch poll, and they've won 11 straight Central Region tournament games.
Yeah, they got Carrie Saunders is a junior guard, 5'9" junior guard, 12.7 points a game. She leads them in scoring, but not far behind is a sophomore forward, 6-foot forward, Rachel Robinson, 12.2 points a game. So they've got some scoring they're going to have to be put to be able to contend with.
Not a lot of size. They're starting 5, 6 feet or below. So maybe Edison can kind of take advantage of that matchup.
We should mention Edison is 2 points away from being undefeated this season, 25-1. They lost a 57-56 game to Towson Catholic, a team from Baltimore, Maryland. This close was Diane Lewis to getting a perfect season if they were to go all the way, now that I've jinxed them.
There you go.
Yeah,
Manchester
exactly.
will host TC Williams. I want to mention Lindsay Biggs, a senior guard, 16.6 points per game.
How big is she?
She's 5'11"
bigs.
big. Not huge bigs, but sort of bigs for a girls basketball player, I think. 16.6 points per game, and the Manchester Lancers have only lost 1 game this season, so a tough test for TC on the road in that one. And there you go. Well, we have done basketball forever.
But before we finish, we got to talk about the Herndon boys and who
Oh,
they're
yeah,
facing.
of course.
We can't leave the
Why
Herndon.
would we forget the Herndon boys?
Brandon Roselle is a big-time scorer for Highland Springs. And, folks, I think Herndon is getting the raw end of the deal here. They're getting the team that was ranked higher than the team that they lost to in the finals.
And Highland Springs has 3 kids averaging over 14 points, and that's as Perry Ballard would say, is impressive.
Impressive. Perry Ballard, impressive.
Brandon Roselle, a junior guard, 6'2". As we're looking at the heights again, another 6'2" player, 6'6" and 6'7". They're big kids over there. 15.6 points a game for Brandon Roselle. Andrew Maples, 16.2. And Jamar Abrams, 14 points a game. So these guys are rolling, and they've gotten off to a pretty good, I guess a good start in the tournament. Maybe getting a better look throughout the tournament, having lost. And Herndon, maybe has their hands full.
Maybe. We'll have full coverage of these games next week, and it'll be a great weekend of basketball. Moving on to a great weekend of regional indoor track last weekend. Want to mention that the Lake Braddock girls and the Centerville boys came home with team titles from the regional tournament over at George Mason. States are this weekend at the Mason Fieldhouse, and should be a pretty good time. Two people broke records. Not a huge record-setting day in the Northern region last weekend, but I want to mention Sean Holston of Lee, junior sprinter. He actually won 2 Northern Region championships. He won the 55 dash, and he set a new regional record in the 300, breaking Carlos Samuel's 1993 mark of 34.61 seconds. Holston beat it with a 34.60. So an 0.01 away from Carlos Samuel. So congratulations to Sean. And also Nicole Kazuba of Chantilly broke the pole vault record. She had a top height of 11 feet. She broke Catherine Patine's record from a couple years back of 10:10. She was with Westfield. And it was an interesting day, kind of up and down. You had some usual suspects like Mike Spooner and Aaron Klein winning big time. And then other guy, other folks you're looking towards next weekend. You look for a guy like Brad Saragusa maybe come back and winning a big distance race at States.
They're going to be right back there again. For Centerville, great win because I know they have a lot of talent on both sides. And for Lake Braddock, nothing new for them winning a region title.
And they win it with depth in the field events and a couple of big runs in the old distance races. So good stuff there.
Got to have the runs.
That's fantastic. So there you go. Impossible trivia time, boys.
What you've all been waiting for.
It is always a crowd pleaser. Want me to go first?
Please do.
All right. Boys, how about this? How about you start?
Okay.
Okay.
Who are the top 2 single-season scorers listed in the Commonwealth of Virginia's record books? And this is not a trick question here. Just because it says Commonwealth of Virginia's record books, it's the VHSL high school books.
This is one season.
This is not just, this is one season. The top 2 scorers, career scoring. Top 2 scorers, public school.
I have no idea. Do you have any idea?
I do not have
Should we
any
just
idea.
ask for the answer?
I think I'm going to let you sweat it out a little bit.
Come on.
Not really, sweat it out, guys.
What's the answer?
Allen Iverson.
Oh, that would make
Number
sense.
1, Allen
Yeah.
Iverson. 948 points. And Jeff, I lied to you. I tried to throw you off. It was a single season.
It was single
record.
season. Thank you, EJ.
Allen Iverson scored
Single season career.
948 points in 1993 for Bethel High School. He did it as a junior. Number 2,
Yeah.
a name we may have heard of in the past. Single season record. Number 2, Moses Malone,
Moses
baby.
Malone.
Moses.
896 points, Petersburg High School, 1974.
All right, Moses Malone. Two very different players. I'd
Absolutely.
add.
One was big, one was not.
Indeed. Jeff Graham, your question?
All right. Who was the last Northern Region player to be named the McDonald's All-American team? I believe we mentioned the year. It was 1993.
1993. Who was coming through the region in 1993? Boy, I couldn't even tell you.
How about South Lakes graduate Joey Beard? He went on to play at Duke, but he
that's
didn't
right.
last very long, and
That's
then
right.
went on to play at Boston University.
That's an excellent question. I like that question a lot. My question this week in Impossible Trivia is, who sits second all-time in the state in career scoring?
Well, according to BJ, it's Moses Malone.
I believe this would also include the female players,
This
Mr. Graham?
is
Wow.
for the females.
This is females.
Who sits second females for
The
scoring?
females. Do you give up? 'Cause
I
I had
give
the answer
up.
in front of me.
Vicky Bullitt, I don't know.
Who?
I know who it is.
All right.
Who is it?
I'm not telling.
All right, I'm going to say who it is. It's Katie Smirka-Duffy, James
Wow.
Madison, 2,463 points.
Who played under Pat Deegan. I
Exactly.
should have known.
There you go. So that is the answer to my trivia question.
I think I know somebody who will be breaking that record next year.
I think you're probably right. Jeff, Northern Region Wrestling, Virginia AAA. It's been so long since we've had it up here.
That's right.
Virginia AAA state championship wrestling matches held at Robinson. What are some of the highlights? from
First
those
time
great
up here
events?
in 14 years, and we had 4 state champions. Starting at 103. Normally, I don't trust kids with 2 names, 2 first names. George Billy at 103 gets the win at 103, and he was so excited he did a backflip after the win.
Did a backflip.
He almost didn't have enough energy to do it. He almost hit his head. But 171, his teammate Matt Jones won 8-2. His brother Brent won at 215 last year, a state title. Now he's wrestling at UVA. 189, Calvin Cardillo, he won 9-1. He actually made a promise to one of his teammates early in the year. One of his teammates, Zach Grimsley, his sister died in August, and Calvin basically said, "I'm going to win a state title for your sister," and he made good. So congratulations to him. And the heavyweight, this was one of the better matches. Colin Miller beat Massaponax's Justin Wine. This was 2-2 going into double overtime. And basically how it is Miller was down in a disadvantaged position, and all he has to do is score an escape with 30 seconds to go. About midway through, Miller got slammed onto the mat, and it was kind of, you're kind of wondering whether he was going to escape or not. But he said because he was so angry at the fact of getting slammed, he was able to get the escape, and he gets his 100th career win, and he wins it. He wins a state title out of it. Two runner-ups: Oakton 160-pounder Casey Hudson was second, and Lee's Patrick Finch at 215. Robinson, team-wise, finishes 5th, so not too bad for the Rams.
Not too shabby. And I think the question everyone wants to know the answer to after this event is, okay, the Northern Region gets this wrestling tournament. They get it in their home at Robinson Secondary. Did it make a difference having the home mat advantage?
I think it did, because Matt Jones said, basically when he was down there last year, you have 1,000 fans from Great Bridge who actually won the event in real convincing fashion, screaming at you, doing everything they can to help you not win. And he said, here, I had 1,000 of my own fans, cheering for me. So, they get 4 champions. A few years back, I believe we had 1 champion. So 4 is not too bad. And Brian Hazard, the coach for Robinson, said after the meet, it went real smoothly, had a lot of compliments. So I would expect Robinson to be a factor in hosting some of these tournaments in the future. It seemed to run real smoothly. Everything was on time. Had a great atmosphere. So I'd like to see him host it again. And
you got to give him credit because everyone involved in this event knew it was imperative for it to run smoothly because it was a fight just to get it up here.
Right. If you have a big delay and you got people leaving unhappy. They're going to go right, back down to the Virginia Beach area and they're going to host it down there.
But it's pretty remarkable. You look at the state tournament is such a different world than the regional tournament. You look at names like Waters and Ibrahim and Russian and people like that, Fitterer, guys who just rolled through their brackets and regionals, and all of a sudden you look here, you're seeing 5th places and 4th places and things like that.
And some guys not even placing. I did a breakdown in the first round alone. We went 26 and 30 overall, and some of the weight classes went 0 and 8 in that first round. So in some weight classes we were real competitive. Some weight classes, we were just dominated by some of the better kids around the state.
Interesting. All right, point counterpoint time. We've got some hot topics tonight to debate here in the Fairfax Sports Report. First and foremost, the World Baseball Classic. Is it a good idea or is it a bad idea? I believe, BJ, you believe it's a good idea, and Jeff, you believe it is not so good idea.
I think it's actually a classic idea. It's worldly, and of course baseball's involved. So, World Baseball Classic. I mean, you can't argue against having the best players in the world play for their countries in an Olympic-style event with pool play. Then you're going to get into all the brackets. It's going to go up against March Madness, so it's going to have some trouble in catching fire, but I think that it's a great way to kick off the baseball season, and you get to see what's out there. I think it's good. I think it gets everybody to pull for their countries, and what's wrong with that? In these great United States of America, we're all from different countries, and with a name like Kubarulis, I can promise you that if I had a team for Greece, I'd be rooting for them. I'd buy the apparel. I'd wear my Greece hat. I think it's something that we'll see grow in the future, and I think it's going to be incredibly successful.
Well, I think Major League Baseball, you already have the best of the best going against each other then. And you're seeing it now, day by day, guys are dropping out just because they don't want to commit to this thing. I mean, you're going to have people who are saying, no, you should stay because you're your country, but they're really worried about, their contracts in Major League Baseball. Today, Billy Wagner, left, and we hear Pedro Martinez, may may not play. I'm really worried about these guys getting injured or either early on or later in the year they're wearing down just because they had to play these extra games at the beginning of the season.
There you go. All right, Winter Olympics. I say dead because of snowboarding. Anytime there's an event where Bam Margera might show up to the Winter Olympics, it's dead and buried. But you say?
I guess I'm saying alive. They just held it, so I guess they're alive and well. Bodie Miller's career may be dead, but the Olympics are what they are.
And then finally, best Herndon team ever. This one? Yes? No? Maybe so?
I think that at least talent-wise, the one with Ricky Lucas when Scotty was a freshman a couple years ago, I think that was the best team. I think the region was better then, but you can't argue with if you win a region title and you've only won one in your career. That's the best team.
You made my point for me, so I don't have to say it.
All right, coming up on the Fairfax Sports Network, we've got plenty to show you, including the FSN Game of the Week. This week, Virginia AAA State Quarterfinals at Robinson Secondary, Sunday at 8:30 p.m. and Tuesday at 8 p.m. Cox, Comcast, Verizon, Channel 10. Do check it out. And check out FSN on the web, www.fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. Photo galleries, all kinds of good stuff. And thank you, CCA Screen Printing, for all of your screen printing needs, 703-978-0257. And Quality Care Ford Service Center, servicing all makes and models, 703-383-6299. And once again, because I am an unmitigated hoo-ah, my book, Low Pucks and 10-cent beer, the 101 worst ideas in sports history, available on Amazon.com.
Quickly, Greg, favorite part, favorite chapter of that book?
It's a list of the 101 worst ideas in sports history. I will not tell you where it is on the list, but I will say that the bronze medal is on the list.
What was
because no trinket. You should never win anything for being closer to fourth place than to first place.
Greg, what was 102? What
102?
didn't make the list?
Mispronouncing Ford last week on the show.
Oh, good old
What I called it,
Ford.
Ford or Fjord or whatever, like I said. All right, thanks for watching, everybody. Please enjoy the basketball and the track this weekend. We'll be back with a full wrap-up and coverage of all the fun this weekend on next week's program. And do you have any picks for this week's game? Anything?
Herndon's going all the way, and I think Marshall's going to win one on the road.
You think Marshall might
I
win
think
one?
Marshall wins one on the road, and I think maybe Edison and TC sneak up and bite some people.
I'd really like to see Herndon go all the way. For us not to have won a state title in I don't know how many years it is. I think Lee was the last team to do it. That needs to end.
If there's any year to do it, it's this year with a special player.
Agreed. I think Edison will probably win a game. I think TC is a one and done team. They're too green.
Too young.
Too green, And Marshall, if they play their game, they've shown they can beat anybody. So I think that it's not out of their own possibility for them to win a
It'd
game.
be real nice to see the team they're playing. You just go like, what the heck is going on?
No one's seen that. They don't know what they're getting.
They're going to win 5-4. They can just hold the ball every time they get the ball. Every time they get the ball,
But will
just
the
hold
team
out.
they're playing pull the sarcastic dribble the ball at half court thing that Herndon pulled and just kind of throw it back in their faces?
Maybe they will.
They may have to. That may be the only way to counter it.
Get out the aggressions. I agree, though. I think Herndon has a realistic shot at bringing home a state title this year, and I think it's a very exciting time if you're a Hornets fan. It's a great team to watch, too. Very exciting.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Thanks for watching, everybody, again, and join us next week for more fun, hijinks, and all that good stuff. Take care.